Basically, for me, every piece of content has one of three jobs. They either reduce friction, they increase confidence, or they deepen the relationship with your customer. If it doesn't fit any of those three purposes, you kill it.
Welcome to Table Stakes. I'm Michel Stevens, Course Director at CXM Academy. My guest today is Anthony Kakoza. He's the head of digital growth at Culligan Belgium. And before that, he spent more than a decade in the trenches of digital marketing. He's a growth-minded digital native with a particular nose for the unglamorous side of content, SEO, web analytics, email, and the kind of campaign measurement that tells you whether a piece of content actually earned its keep. Anthony, welcome to Table Stakes.
Thank you for having me.
It is with absolute pleasure, Anthony. And this is one I really look forward to. I know we started talking about it at the beginning of the season that you should be on the show. But yeah, of course, life happens and all of a sudden you are the season finale, basically.
Hey, no pressure.
No pressure at all. Now, Anthony, I invited you because content marketing is a strange place right now. On the one hand, it's never been more popular. I mean, every CX team, every brand, every solo founder is producing content these days. Hey, who am I to talk, right? And on the other hand, almost nobody can tell you which piece of content actually did anything. I mean, AI has made content essentially free to produce. I mean, my feeds are flooded. Attention is the scarcest thing in the room. And yet most teams are still measuring success by, we shipped it or we produced it. I mean,
Indeed.
Yeah. Storytelling, which everybody loves to talk about, has quietly become a polite way of saying we don't have a way to measure the effectiveness. And I think that that's a little bit of a problem, because if you can't connect a piece of content to a number that matters, you're not doing marketing. I think you're doing arts and crafts with a logo on it or something like that.
Indeed. It's nicely said, honestly.
I tried to do my homework, but let's start there. When you say content marketing has to be data driven, what do you actually mean by that? And where does most content marketing today fall short of that bar?
Yeah, that's a two-sided question, but in short, data-driven for me means that every major content decision, that means what topic are we going to talk about, what format are we using, what channel are we publishing on, is actually guided by behavioral and performance data, not a gut feel, not, hey, the CEO likes this or wants you to push this on this one. No, every major content decision is pushed based on one of these actions. And then it closes the loop back into other operations of the business. For example, within CX, you could ask the question, did a piece of my content, of my help article, for example, move a customer into resolving that issue, or absolutely not? Data in content has three layers, in my opinion. It has, there's either consumption data, which means time on page, clicks, drop off, like the classic ones if you think about data. You have engagement quality data. That's like scroll depth, return visits. So still a lot of things that you can track via basic analytics, maybe here and there a few adjustments on it, but still something that's really known. And then something that, in my opinion, is often overlooked, and that is outcome data. That can be in regards to form fills, MQLs, how did it influence your pipeline? Did you close tickets? Things like that, that's really feedback into the content that you've written. Where does it fall short today? In many cases, that's if you treat like vanity metrics as a proxy for value. If you say, hey, my time on page is mega high, I have K views on my content. Great, good job. Did it assist in your conversions? No. Yeah. Then
Yeah.
Good job on views.
Yeah, traffic without any action is useless, right?
Yeah, indeed. Did the feedback that you received, did it Is it quantitative or qualitative? Meaning, is it purely clicks and shares, or is it really signals from a live chat, sales call notes, which are all gold mines for content or to write content about? You really have the friction points there. And that's what people are looking for. That's what people are going for. And not, for example, if you have, again, to that 10K example, if you have 10K views on a certain blog post, people doesn't necessarily want to see more of that blog post, but they might be able to rather search for pieces of content that solve friction points. If you have no closed loop CX integration, that's also a problem. For example,
What does that
let's
mean?
say, for example, that you've got you got a person or a lead because that person downloaded a white paper. Great, cool, good job. He became a customer. All right, great. Your white paper did its job. Your salespeople did their job. They went forward. And then afterwards, what happens with that person? Did he churn? Did he open 3 support tickets? Did he give a low NPS score? If you don't have an integration with your CX, you don't know what that white paper eventually did. So basically, for me, data driven answers the question, did this content make the journey faster, better? Did it solve anything? Instead of, did anyone look at it?
Yeah. Yeah. So what you're saying is that, you know, instead of looking at how much volume is it producing, you're looking at what kind of behavior is actually flowing out of that,
Indeed.
out of that volume. And sometimes you can produce something that is massively popular. But, well, sometimes you're also not very proud of that. I mean, there was this LinkedIn post I did just before Christmas. And when I posted it, I saw that there was some kind of visual mistakes in it. And I told myself, you know what? It's just before Christmas. Nobody's going to notice. It's fine. I think the content itself was fine, but visually it was not really that great. It's one of the most popular posts of 2025, and with a lot of engagement in there and stuff like that. So, and every time I look at that, I go like, man, goodness, no, I don't want to be
But
reminded by it.
it might have
But
become
people like
popular
it.
for a reason, because if that really answered a friction point of people, if that really resonated with people, then they comment with it, they engage with it, and that's what you're looking for. That's the content that you wanted, even if you yourself think the image that is accompanied with it isn't the most pretty with it. Customers don't care.
Yeah, hey, that's a useful frame, Anthony, because I think a lot of CX professionals listening to this are going to say, yeah, well, fine, but content marketing is the marketing team's problem,
Yep.
not mine. And I want to push back on that a little bit because every CX team is producing content all day long. It could be onboarding emails, knowledge based articles, in app messages, or post purchase journeys, you name it, right? Win back flows. And almost none of it is measured the way a marketing team would measure a paid campaign or anything. So for the CX leader listening, where does CX content fall apart against the data-driven test you just described? And what's the cost of that?
Well, an easy answer there is, or a very short answer on it, is that CX leaders often think their content is working. However, they are often measuring the wrong thing. For example, when support and marketing don't work together, there's support that on one hand will be answering or writing the exact same thing many times over because marketing never adapted it based on new answers, new information on their website. While on the other hand, the marketing team will create top of funnel content that will probably perform super well for their KPIs, but totally ignore any friction points that the CX team has. So in the end, two types of content that don't match. Another thing is something I like to call personalization theater. So basically, you have personalization where content sits, but not necessarily what it says. For example, let's say that you have a software as a service product, and there's 3 tiers on it. You have a basic, a medium, and a high-paying business type of content, and you have an issue with whatever of the service. So you go to the frequently asked questions page, and somebody with a free account will have the exact same information as somebody with a business account on that website.
Mhm.
So if your CX content is locked in a knowledge base or a CMS that doesn't talk with your CRM, that doesn't talk with your CDP, you'll create friction again. And then another thing is something I like to call passive and active personalization. For example, there's a problem with deliveries. So we need to create banners and blog posts and whatever to indicate, hey, there's a problem with deliveries. It's not you. Something is happening. Okay, great. You move forward on that. And then tomorrow there's another problem. And then you write another piece of content for that. And then the day after there's another problem. Well, if you know, for example, that in the summertime there's going to be more deliveries and thus things will go a lot slower, you go predictive and you try to move forward on that end and try to produce content that really solves that issue before it even happens. So for me, there's a difference between passive and active personalization. Uh, there's a study from Gartner where people who experience passive personalization are 2 times more willing to pay for a premium price.
Yeah, that's actually that's super interesting. I never thought about personalization in that kind of way. I think I'm stuck or I was stuck in the thinking of the was it passive personalization, where
Yeah.
there is an interaction and based on that something other happens. I never thought about predicting what's going to happen in the future. I think I did, but not in this context. So that's super interesting. Now let's get practical for a second. You are running digital growth at Culligan, which is a real B2B operation with real customers, real revenue, real real water filtration units sitting in real companies and households. So this isn't theory for you. When you sit down to plan content, a campaign, an email program, a piece of long form, doesn't matter. What does that feedback loop that you talked about earlier actually look like? What are you measuring and on what cadence? And how do you use it to decide what to keep?
All right. Good question. Basically, for me, every piece of content has one of 3 jobs. They either reduce friction, they increase confidence, or they deepen the relationship with your customer. If it doesn't fit any of those 3 purposes, you kill it. And usually that's even 30% of all content. Then for all the rest, there's a loop that I usually work in that's, pretty much on short term, medium term, long term, tells if a piece of content is worth keeping or if it needs to be killed, rewritten, or archived. First is something I call a pulse check, basically looking at some key data of a piece of content in the last 30 days. Is there a search intent? What is the search intent? Is there a search exit rate? That means, for example, for help articles, is somebody landing on a certain help article, describing a certain topic, and then looking up that topic again in the search bar? Because obviously that means that whatever was written in that help article didn't answer that question. Everything that passes that test goes over to a performance check where I go in like a month or month and a half later, where I check is what is the cohort influence score. For example, did people land on this topic? Are there a lot of views on the topic on one hand? And on the other hand, did it assist in any other KPIs? Is it conversion? Is it tickets resolved? Is it whatever that can be? And then last is a strategy reset. So you look at all the content that you've created, the entire list, and you check in the end again, did it help with engagement rate? Did those people that entered support tickets due to it, did they give in the end a lower NPS score? So what's the next step that they've done, for example? And there it's also really simple. If you notice that there's a lot of friction that is created despite the content that is produced, then there's either something missing or your content is not addressing that friction.
The more I hear about all this, the more I realize what a craft this actually is as well. I mean, this is not something that you just do on the side. This is something that requires
No,
deep expertise.
no, indeed, it's something that I really struggle with in a lot of cases that I've seen in agencies. I've worked half of my career in agencies. Is hey, we're going to do content marketing. That means you have to write blog articles. It's more than blog articles. Content is really every contact point that you have with your customer. They produce or we produce content and they take in content.
Yeah, and when I remember how we at CXM Academy how we started. I mean, we started with the same level of enthusiasm. It was like, yeah, okay, we have a few things to say. We have research, we have insights. Yeah, let's share that with the world and see where we land. And then of course you get like the disappointment, like, okay, so nobody is basically listening. We're shouting into an empty room. And so it takes a little bit of a craft to make sure that your great content ends up with the right audience, and that people are going like, yeah, okay, this makes sense. And I'm willing to amplify it or willing to engage with it. Because ultimately, as you said in the very beginning, it needs to lead something. It's not just for the metrics that you do it, right? Yeah.
It's more than for the CEO who wants to see something really, really bad. I mean, you could always do that. Politics are a thing in every company, but in the end, if it doesn't serve your purpose, then you'll get reprimanded for that.
Yeah, of course. Hey, I want to talk about traps a little bit, because in my experience, as I said before, yeah, just now, sometimes you just start with something and yeah, you hope for the best. So the danger is not necessarily that we don't measure, but it's that we measure the wrong things or let the data tell us a flattering story. Vanity metrics, we talked about that look great on the board, like last click attribution that gives you all the credit to Google search, but the customer was going to search it anyway. Or AI generated content slop that ranks for 2 weeks and then collapses.
Yeah.
What's the failure mode you see most often, including, if you're willing, the one you've personally fallen into?
Yeah, there's in my career, it's almost 15 years in doing this. I have to be honest, I made a lot of mistakes. You can always make mistakes, is something an old boss of me told me. I really respect that guy. He was also called Michel.
Yeah, of course.
He told me you can always make mistakes. The most important part of it is that you learn from it and avoid it the next time. And then everything is okay. So I made a lot of mistakes, but I always learned from them. One of the things, for example, is attribution madness, if you will. A lot of people who consumed a lot of blog posts where you had retargeting, they responded on the retargeting, they opened a lot on their emails, they converted a lot. The problem was we really pushed down on our content there, but in the end, somebody who reads 5 blog posts, somebody who opens your email every week, that's not necessarily due to your content. That's maybe because that person was going to convert anyway, because he's a high intent, self-serving customer. So you can say, hey, my content is really working on there. But in the end, not necessarily due to our blog post. So they were already high intent. So it's not due to your content resulting very high in a certain group that you influenced somebody 100% of the time. Sometimes there's exceptions to that rule. Another thing I've done as well is that there was top of funnel content that I've written or co-written. That was when I talked about my feedback loop, it was not answering to it. And I made the decision to kill it. What was the problem in that end? So it ran like for 2 months, 3 months. Really good. Well, not good top of funnel reach. I decided to kill it, but the problem was that the month after, I noticed that bottom funnel conversion was 60% down. Was, oh, shit, what is happening here?
So it was the difference between people who are starting to figure out what kind of thing do I need until the final thing is like, this is what I need.
Indeed, basically, that first thing wasn't immediately converting into new customers, because they were it was content that really served that top of funnel layer, as in the first touch point with the company, and there were going to be a lot more touch point necessary to eventually convert them. But by killing them, I basically eliminated that first step.
Right. How
And
did you figure that one out? Was
sorry?
it just by looking at the data? How did you figure it out? Was it just by looking at the data that you figured that one out?
Basically, when the drop happens at the same time when you decide to kill a subject, then you're going to look into what caused it. And it was really easy to identify there was a high view but very low intent item. So that's why earlier I said don't always kill it, but rewrite it maybe.
Yeah. Wow, super interesting. Super interesting, Anthony. I think this has been incredibly useful, but unfortunately, our time is almost up. And I always like to give listeners something they can do on Monday morning. So, for a CX or content leader who hears this and thinks, right, I need to actually run my content like portfolio that has start to earn its keep. But they don't have a Culligan sized analytics setup. They don't have a data team on call. They have a backlog of work already. What's the one thing they should do this week to start closing that gap?
The problem is that there's going to be a necessary investment of 2 hours and then a weekly 30 minutes. But that first 2 hours is necessary because otherwise it's going to be really difficult. Basically, there's a few steps that you can take in those few hours. The first thing is you look up your 50 most visited content pieces, not blog posts, real helpful content pieces, FAQ, help, product pages, things like that. Knowing where the most views are is analytics, Google Analytics. That's free. You can easily implement. If you don't have access to that, honestly, you have a bigger problem than just your content.
Yeah.
But basically exporting those, look at them one by one and answer 3 questions basically. First off, what's the usage? How many views did you get in the last few days, in last 30, 90 days? Failure? No, not failure. Basically, how many support tickets came due to this topic? So knowing what the friction more. How many help articles or help requests on your chat box, for example, were posts about a certain topic that was freely available on the website.
Yeah.
And also ask, did this content help in any way? Did, for example, the support was able to refer to a certain help article on the website and say, hey, it's there. Okay, I read it. Okay, great. I can move forward, or I don't understand it. In that end. Then if you have those 50 articles, you answer those questions. Let's say that you do a budget test. Say you have 300 euros. That's not, and it takes 5 euros to keep one piece of content alive. So that means that you don't have the necessary budget for all the articles you have, or just a bit more. So you go into each content article and you ask the question, keep or kill. The 10 lowest performing ones, you don't kill necessarily. You archive or rewrite. You try to optimize them based on the friction points that you have in the rest of your data. Is there high usage and low resolution? Rewrite, don't archive. Rewrite. Try to make sure that gets up to date based on queries that you get today. And send one mail to support if you're not part of the support team. What is the one question this week or last week that customers ask that none of the content on the website answers today? And there you'll get responses. You take the top answer. That's basically the inventory to make. That's the 2 hours that you take. And then every week you take 30 minutes, you pick a performing topic, you rewrite it, and you write one new piece of information based on that mail that you've sent, or maybe a new query that you saw, search query that you saw, and move forward in that. In 12 weeks, you'll have like 30 new pieces of content already written down.
Nice.
So that's going to be a life changer product. And basically, first time takes about 2 hours. But after that, weekly 30 minutes and saves your job.
Good. Anthony, thank you so much for that. That's a great place to land, because if I can recap, the message I'm taking away from this conversation is that content is no longer the bottleneck. I mean, AI took care of that. The bottleneck is judgment, the willingness to look at what you produced, ask whether it's actually moved a number that really matters, and kill the things that didn't, or archive the things that didn't.
Yeah, indeed.
I think storytelling is wonderful, but a story without a scoreboard is just hope. And hope, as the saying goes, is not a strategy. Anthony, thank you so much. This is our season finale. So to all of you who've been with us through 22 episodes, thank you. We've covered data storytelling, survey design, personalization, AI ethics, stakeholder buying, the works. If there is one true line in all of it, it's that the basics of customer experience are not glamorous, but they are decisive. The teams that win are the ones that bother to measure what they ship, listen to what they hear, and have the discipline to change their minds when the evidence says they should. Anthony, thank you again.
Thank you for having me. It was great.
Absolutely my pleasure. To all of you watching and listening, content is cheap, attention is expensive, and proof is what separates a marketer from a hobbyist. That's table stakes. Until next time, here or in one of our courses.